Always Flowers boho style printable papers are the feature throughout this spiral art journal. Our spread today was brought about as a collaboration with Two Old Crows and includes a TP roll, a candle wax, and we mixed it all together using paper towels and napkins from previous projects. Welcome to PM Artist Studio. I am Mariah, the M in PM. Please be sure to like this video, subscribe, and thank you for watching. As alluded to in the intro, we will be using a candle and toilet paper per our collaboration with Two Old Crows. I'll have a link to Peg's channel down below. She is Two Old Crows and she came up with this idea and I thought it might be fun. I also have a little helper there if you can see her in the corner making Play-Doh pies. That did not have anything to do with this journal page. But as you saw, I did light the candle, burn some wax, because my original thought with all of this is I wanted to try to use the candle wax at least in a couple of different ways, which I did. One being as some texture on the page. And the second thing in our collaboration was the toilet paper. That was actually Peg's choice and the candle was mine. And our whole thought was to choose items that are just readily available around the house. So obviously toilet paper, and most people have a candle as well. This was just a plain Jane candle, nothing special. Same thing with the toilet paper. You can use a paper towel roll as well. The cardboard's nice. And if you do check out Peg's page, she does all kinds of cool stuff with the toilet paper rolls. I thought I love making pockets and little flip down doors. If you've watched any of our videos before, watched or looked at any of our journals, I love making more interactive type pages. I really wanted at first to make that side pocket happen, but with this being a spiral bound journal, that just really layout wise wasn't gonna work. I needed it kind of further over, and then I was worried that whatever I did put in the pocket might flow out. So it took me kind of a minute to really work out its position because I had already committed to where my candle wax texturing part was going to be, because I just jumped right into it. And sometimes that's okay, you know, just to, not that I had to keep this page, I probably could have redone it if I needed to, but I like to challenge myself in, if I have made one decision, I then need to problem solve to figure out how the next piece is gonna happen. So what I was doing there is just kind of evening it up. I didn't cut it exactly straight when I first cut it. And as you saw in that last spread, if you watched that video, if you haven't, I will put a link below, or actually I'll put it in the cards, or you can click it at the end of the video. We love using magnets, and last spread was all about the magnets. And I wanted to continue some of that over here and knew that it would be a really cool way to keep the pocket from being too loose or to just like it stayed in place. It wasn't gonna pop open. And I wanted to try again to see how is the candle wax going to work with that magnet. And it was really great, actually. Kind of highly recommend it. The only drawback to the wax is what is going to stick to it. But because I only used it in certain areas, I always had area around it to glue down whatever I needed to. And you'll see more of that here in a little bit when I get deeper into the collaging part of this project. Right now, I am going through, and again, as I mentioned in the intro, the bag of kept blotter rags, or napkins and paper towels and whatever mopped up was being sprayed, or a lot of it is spray, some of it's ink, and it in itself adds a certain element of surprise, and you don't always know how something's going to react, because it could have a couple of different things on it. And if you know anything about some of this mixed media, especially like brushos, when introduced to something wet, which is like glue, it will reactivate and interesting things happen. Now, one of the other things that I did use, not a ton of, but was that same paper that is on the previous page. So this was the second in this spread. And the other page is very, very simple. I really liked it, and it was a nice transition from the magnet page. So while doing that, I wanted to make sure that I was keeping my colors consistent, and I chose quite a few that had the teal, but along with the teal came some green that I had to sort of deal with a bit more later. But I knew that this was going to be quite layered, so I wasn't too worried about it. Like, I didn't want to go overboard with it, but I did actually get more on there than I wanted to, because I really had to deal with it. I thought that green was going to lighten up a bit more when it dried, but it did not. And again, that goes back to, I'm not really sure what it was. Most likely it's alcohol ink, but I'm not sure. Could be sprays. Just don't know. Anyway, this is why I sped this part of the video up even more. It's just tearing and collaging. The tweezers came in very handy. It was kind of funny though, when I was right there around the magnet, the tweezers would actually get magnetized to it. And I kept thinking, why is that kind of sticking down there? It took me a minute. So I don't know if that shows up on the video that I was like, and then I laid them down and kind of tapped them on there. I was like, oh, well, yeah. The tip of the art glitter glue also is a metal that gets stuck to the magnet, FYI. I wanted to be very consistent in this first layer, and that's why I stuck to using the brown napkin, and I liked those blotted spots. I knew that those were going to be kind of a cool element that could be repeated from kind of top to bottom. And what was really great is that they showed through, because these napkins, and I in fact kind of split the napkin, because you know that's like 2-ply. I split it apart so it was even more so. You can see me doing that here, that I tore it and then pulled it apart. And I wanted to bring, as I always do, one element to the other page, so I glued that one across the two spreads. I should have thought about it a little bit more so ahead of time, that the glue where I glued was going to show through more than I had anticipated. I really thought it was going to spread out more like Mod Podge, but it didn't. And then, in fact, I came to sort of like how it added and repeated the circular pattern from that page that I'm working on right now. So repetition can happen in a lot of ways. I mean, whether it's color, pattern, texture, and I try to keep a lot of those things in mind as I'm creating and moving from one spread or one page to another, or even one section of a page. It's important to keep repetition on a page. There's good flow that way. This is where I was talking about, I kind of like noticed what was happening, so I came back with a bit more glue in hopes that it would sort of blend out those glue spots. It did a little bit, but not as much as I had wanted. But all in all, pretty happy with it. Now, speaking back to that repetition, it was important to bring more of that lighter blue teal color from the previous page over into this collaged piece. He just wasn't getting it in napkins, even though there was sort of that blue, more bluish green. It needed a bit more of the lighter, and not the minty, because I had plenty of that. It's almost that sky blue. So what I was doing there is taking pieces from the same torn paper, because this was the actual paper stuff that was used on that previous page, and tearing it into little strips and creating a new pattern from top to bottom. And all the while, I knew that at a certain point, I was going to be bringing back in the little flippy pocket. So that's why you don't see me working in that one bottom corner quite yet. Wanted to get more of the top of the page completed, and then work my way down into that corner where the pocket is gonna live. Now it's time for the pocket. And I'm gonna slow things down a little bit here too, because I thought that it was important to see this a bit slower. So what I end up doing here is creating a flip down from one of the other pieces of paper that came off of that long piece, and bringing it from the other side, what was the back side of this particular page. And so it was going to be one of those things where I wanted to make sure that I wasn't just using something that I was going to cover up. I wanted it to flow again into the next page, because when you open the pocket up, it was going to go on both pages. So I've done enough of these to know that I need to think a couple steps ahead. And that's why it was important to get the pocket on there right now, rather than working more, so I can incorporate it onto the page that it was going to be closed upon, and then be able to have something really cool to work towards on the next page. And what was really nice is there was that little folded over piece, which just gave it just a little added hold there at the bottom, or on the side of the flip down. And now just working again through figuring out which pieces, and now I have kind of some new colors to start to bring in as well, because you want it to look good both when it is closed, when it's flipped up, and seem cohesive to design when it's flipped down. That was why it was also very important to start getting it on the page, because if I just came in at the end, I would have probably had to do a bit more work to really make it all one piece. It also helped with creating, because I do bring the collage across the bottom where it folds, and you'll see down there I left a little bit of a gap. And that's so, and a lot of you guys that know how to do the bookbinding and things of that nature understand that there has to be a little bit of margin or fold left there so it can fold it. Like, it can't be too tight because it'll just tear, especially since it's paper. Now I do plan on either Mod Podging or sealing this somehow, which will help with the hinging and that fold being more secure. But I felt pretty good about it anyway, because it's gonna have like 2 layers there, and that fold's gonna be pretty well between the glue and all the paper towel and everything. Plus the paper that's on the other side is that white craft paper, which has a high fiber content. It's pretty sturdy. Now I'm gonna bring in some of these bigger pieces, because I'm kind of filling in. It's like the detailed work was done in those very textured areas of the candle wax. And what's kind of sad here is, because you're seeing it from a top view and you don't get to see a ton of the side view. Sorry about that. I probably should have held it up to the camera more often. That there is quite a bit of texture, especially in that middle area where the candle wax was dripped on at the very, very beginning. And it feels really neat. And I will say that in certain areas, I am very happy that this wasn't something that I covered the page in the candle wax, because stuff would not have stuck to it. I was having some areas where it was starting to lift up. But once I kind of held it down and there was enough of a stretch across, it held onto the paper, and then I could glue on top of it. one of the other things to keep in mind in a section like this where the magnet is, I kept it to just one layer of the napkin so it would connect, because the magnet is going to basically have two layers, because you saw me put it down there, that it had to connect through. And even though these are pretty strong magnets, they aren't the strongest in the world. So about 1 or 2 thin layers of paper is what they will hold or connect through. And I talked a lot about that in the last video as well. So if you guys are finding value in this video, I would love it. If you haven't subscribed to our channel, please do. We're doing lives, not only along with our regular videos, we are doing those on Wednesdays and Fridays. And so you can kind of sit and chat with us and ask questions. And we plan to do more things, not only like this, but P has been doing tons of jelly printing. So if you're interested in that, come check us out. So I think I tried to use this piece finally. Yeah, I was gonna say I could remember. I really wanted to use that piece of paper towel. I like the texture on it. It was a little bit different than the rest of them, and I don't know if that was because of what was used on it. It seemed like it was more of the brushos, if I had to guess, like the watercolor crystals, just by the way it reacted and also just the way it looked. But it was a, what is it, a grab bag, a hodgepodge of who knows what. But again, you see that I used it down at the bottom, a little bit right above the pocket, and then in that corner. Now, I felt like that was probably going to be a little bit too much, so now I'm bringing back in a couple of bits from the brown that we started out with, and piecing those in, that teal color. See, there needed to be that repetition, because otherwise you just kind of have weird darker teal pieces just floating out there and not anchored down and feeling like they were flowing into one another. And I can't wait for P to hear this back, because I think she'll have proud moments of how I talked about all of that. And I'll wait until she mentions it in the comments. And we love for you guys to leave some comments. So comment below, tell us if you're loving this, hating it. If you want to leave this video a thumbs down, that's okay. Tell me why. I'll fix it. I'll work on it. Maybe. I don't know. We'll see. Comment below. So, again, just using more of the pieces. I did layer a few bits and whatnot on that one page, but really that was just one of our catch papers. It started out as a catch paper. I added more sprays just to tone it down, and some of this other, actually I don't think I did anything to any of the napkins other than gluing them down and piecing them together. Now I did come back here in a little bit once you see some of this finishing up, and what I end up doing here in a moment to bring in the candle wax, because I wanted it to be something more obvious on the top layer, that not only the toilet paper roll was used, but the wax itself as more of a finishing piece. So I wanted to start and end with some wax. So as you can see here, tons and tons of just tearing and gluing and bringing in, it was sort of like painting, just with little tiny torn pieces of paper towel. I'm so pleased with how it all turned out, and just really couldn't have worked out better. So now you see how when it flipped up and down there, on that one corner, it really looked like it was part of that top piece. And now here we are, finished up with the wax. So what I did there is I wanted to bring in a little bit of fluffiness, and because almost every page has some type of yarn or thread or something. So I brought in just some strands of the gold embroidery thread that we often use. I did a little first dab of the wax, and then I have this little container of trinket things that either I'm going to create dangles or things with. But one of them has little flowers in it, and I thought, well, if it stamps into the wax, that would be really awesome. It didn't do it quite as well as I wanted. I think the design might be a little too small, but it does show up. I mean, it is very subtle. I would have liked it to be a bit more like, especially since it's flowers, and this is our Always Flowers boho paper. Even though there wasn't really any printed pattern paper on the page, I do actually use 2 of the pattern papers for the tags that go into the pocket, which you will see later on. I'm going to do those videos, or that video, as one single thing of just the tags that were created for Always Boho Style Journal, because they really can all be interused throughout the pages. And there you have it. That is our collaboration page using toilet paper roll and candle wax. So I was trying to figure out if I was going to seal the page there or not. I ended up not. I don't know if I'm going to seal this at all. I probably should. But I love the way that it looks, and I don't want to ruin that. So I'm thinking further upon that. I'm not really still pondering to this, even though it has been bound and everything. It's an idea. So here it is, all bound. See, the colors really do pop. Get a little sneak peek at the finished tags as well. Really cool stuff. 2 of the patterns, the one with the rainbow colorful leaves. And then that leads very nicely into where it flips down, and that'll take us on into the next spread. So keep an eye out for that. Again, please like, subscribe, ring the bell. We do this each week, and we're doing lives as well. So comment below if you want to see something more in detail. We can sit down and do a live on it. And like I said, like the video, leave us comments below, subscribe if you haven't, click the bell. Thank you again. Bye.